I thought my older brother's arrogant best friend hated my guts, until the night I found his secret sketchbook. Asher was always the one person I avoided at all costs at home. In fact, I considered stepping into any room he occupied to be a grave mistake. He was my older brother's best friend since early childhood, and the handsome star soccer player every girl in high school chased, desperate for just one look or a passing glance from him in the hallways. To me, he was nothing but an arrogant guy overflowing with selfishness, who went out of his way to ignore me in the most frustrating, calculated manner and silently look down on me. Whenever I walked into a room, he'd stop talking immediately, switching his tone with my brother to a strange, dry formality. If I casually said hi out of politeness, he'd just nod with this cold, detached demeanor that made me utterly regret opening my mouth, as if I were an invisible entity or a heavy burden invading his perfect, handsome world. Last summer, things took a turn for the worse, suffocating my space completely. Asher started spending almost all his time at our house under the pretext of studying intensely and preparing for college with my brother. His presence filled the house, his loud, effortless voice, and his booming laughter that would instantly die out the moment my shadow appeared. As a result, I stayed locked in my room all day, keeping the door shut tightly and putting on my headphones just to avoid hearing his icy behavior or having to face those sharp, cryptic stares that I always interpreted as pure dislike and revulsion toward me. I would lie on my bed, staring at the ceiling, asking myself in sheer frustration, why does he treat me like this? What did I ever do to make him look at me like an enemy? To make matters worse, I began to notice strange behaviors from him that only fueled my confusion and anger. Once, when I tripped in the backyard and dropped all my school books, my brother rushed over to help me. Meanwhile, Asher just stood in the distance, watching me with a frozen, harsh expression as if I were just some nuisance on the pavement. He didn't lift a finger or utter a single word of sympathy. Instead, he simply turned around and walked away with absolute coldness, as if he couldn't even stand to see me in trouble. These small moments accumulated in my heart like burning coals, building a solid wall of resentment day after day. I swore to myself every night that this arrogant boy would never get a single smile from me, and that I would treat him with the exact same coldness to show him how little he mattered to me. At the end of that week, I even went out of my way to invite my best friends over, and we laughed and chatted loudly in the yard. When he brushed past us, I intentionally laughed with an exaggerated tone just to show him how completely irrelevant his presence was to me. But he didn't even look up. He just kept walking, his gaze fixed on the ground, gripping his sports jacket tightly as if he were trying to escape the entire scene as fast as he could. The heavy tension in the air remained so thick it could almost be touched whenever we brushed past each other in the corridor, with no idea that a quiet, stormy Saturday night was about to shatter all my walls, dismantle every single preconception I held, and redraw reality in colors I never thought possible. It all started on a stormy Saturday night. The sky was lighting up with lightning, and the sound of heavy rain beat against the windows like an omen of an impending dramatic event. My brother came home late, limping heavily and complaining about a severe ankle injury he sustained during a brutal soccer practice. He looked utterly exhausted. He slumped onto the couch with a deep sigh, and then suddenly remembered he had left a massive, incredibly important reference book Asher had lent him for a university assignment due early the next morning. He looked at me with pleading eyes and said, "Please, my foot is killing me and I can't move. The book is down in the living room, can you get it for me?" I couldn't say no, despite my hatred for that room which still lingered with the faint scent of Asher's familiar cologne. I walked down the wooden stairs slowly, the house dead silent and dark except for the dim streetlights outside. I reached the large coffee table and found the heavy volume resting there. As I reached out and lifted its weight, the unexpected happened. A small notebook slipped from between its thick pages. It had a sleek, soft black leather cover and was sealed tight with a black elastic band wrapped around it, as if guarding a dangerous secret. I froze in my tracks for a moment, just staring at it. I knew instantly it belonged to Asher. I had seen him holding it multiple times during his long, silent moments of spacing out. At that exact moment, a fierce war raged in my mind between my morals, which forbade me from spying on others' belongings, and my killing curiosity whispering that the answer to his icy, unjustified coldness toward me all these years lay within this book. Instinctively, with my hands trembling slightly, I undid the elastic band and flipped open the first page under the dim glow of my phone. My heart literally stopped, and time completely froze for what felt like eternity. My breathing grew shallow and rapid as I stared at those stunning details. It wasn't just random, messy doodles of a bored teenager. The portraits captured incredibly precise details of my habits that I didn't think anyone ever noticed. There was a drawing from last winter showing me wearing my favorite oversized peach-colored sweater, and another showing me tying my hair up in a messy bun with a pencil clenched between my teeth while studying, a habit I only do when I'm intensely focused. The artwork was frighteningly precise, revealing the sheer amount of time and effort this person had spent observing me in silence, without ever making me feel like he even registered my existence. Even more, I noticed dry water stains on the edges of some pages, as if droplets of rain, or perhaps tears, had fallen on them while he was drawing in the solitude of his room. There were tiny details of my features, like a small mole near my ear that I never even paid attention to, yet he had drawn it with bizarre clarity and a passion that showed in every single stroke of his charcoal pencil. A strange mixture of panic and overwhelming confusion washed over me. How could someone who treated me in public like a plague he wanted to escape draw the very details of my soul with such tenderness and hidden devotion behind closed doors? Was this really the same harsh Asher who supposedly couldn't stand the sight of me? I sank onto the cold floor, my knees no longer able to support my weight. I kept flipping through the pages in absolute disbelief, my fingers trembling violently, and my heart pounding like a drum against my chest to the point where I thought my brother would hear it from upstairs. I couldn't wrap my head around or believe how this dry, harsh, and cold guy, who had never once offered me a kind word, could hold such deep, warm, and hidden emotions for me behind a mask of hatred and aloofness. A shiver ran through my entire body as I realized that all those sharp stares I thought were signs of contempt were actually just him trying to steal my features, memorizing them to draw later in his isolation. I scrolled through the notebook until I reached the very last page, and there I found a massive, hyper-realistic drawing of my own eyes. Underneath it, he had written in his messy, jagged handwriting, as if driven by pure desperation, I wish I could look into her eyes for just 1 second in reality without my voice shaking and the words dying in my throat, and without her brother finding out that I've been hopelessly in love with her for years. But I'm so terrified she will reject me if she knows, and I'll break, losing his friendship and this entire family that embraced me. So I will remain a stranger who openly dislikes her and secretly worships her. As the words danced before my tear-blurred eyes, a sweeping wave of memories rushed over me. I suddenly recalled all those times he stood in the background, his unexplained awkwardness whenever I tried to talk to him, and how he would slip away the moment my brother left the room to avoid being alone with me. I finally understood that his coldness was never hatred, it was a fragile shield hiding a heart that trembled at the thought of being exposed and rejected. All those actions that seemed like pride and disgust were actually a storm of silent love and an inability to speak that was slowly eating him alive. My months of built-up resentment dissolved in a matter of seconds, replaced by an overwhelming, almost wild urge to protect this panicked heart that chose silence just to avoid losing the safe haven he had found with us. I took a deep, trembling breath, trying to collect my shattered thoughts, when I suddenly heard my brother calling out to me from upstairs, asking if I had found the textbook yet. I called back in a shaky voice, doing my best to sound completely normal, telling him I'd bring it up in just a second. A sudden impulse took over me. I didn't put the notebook back inside the textbook. Instead, I decided to hold onto it, clutching it close to my chest. I felt like these pages no longer belonged to Asher alone, they belonged to me too, serving as living proof of a pure, fragile love that deserved to finally step out into the light after all those years of dark, painful silence. My breath caught completely as I read those lines over and over again, tears welling up in my eyes from shock and emotion. Suddenly, the wall of resentment I had built for months dissolved, replaced by an overwhelming, indescribable feeling. At that exact moment, the stillness of the night was shattered as the phone in my hand vibrated violently, showing an incoming call from Asher himself. I swallowed hard, took a deep breath to calm my racing mind, and answered with a shaky voice, trying to pretend to be strong. His voice came through the line trembling, panicked, stripped entirely of his usual pride or coldness, filled with a vulnerability and brokenness I had never heard in him before. He spoke with ragged breaths. Please, tell me my brother hasn't handed you the book yet, or that you haven't opened the small black notebook. I am completely incapable of facing you right now, and I'm terrified you'll hate me and I'll lose you forever if you find out the truth. I held back my tears, looked down at the drawing of my eyes, and smiled softly. I whispered in a calm, steady voice that shook his entire world. I didn't just open the notebook, Asher. I read every single word you wrote. And I'm waiting for you in the living room right now to come over and explain the details of every portrait you've drawn of me for years, so don't be late. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Bye.